Hi, I'm Lacey. My parents invited me to a small family dinner, but when I got there wasn't even a chair for me. Not only was it a surprise party for my sister, I was handed the $3,200 bill the next morning, but that was just the beginning. They opened credit cards in my name, took out loans, cropped me out of photos. Why would a family erase one of their own and still expect her to pay for the celebration? Before we dive in, have you ever felt like the outsider in your own family? Has silence ever cost you more than words? What time are you listening to this? And where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I really want to know. The air smelled like cinnamon and wet wool as I stepped into the restaurant. My boots were damp from the snow, the hem of my coat brushing against salt-stained tile. I had curled my hair that evening, something I hadn't done in months. Maybe it was silly, but a part of me wanted to feel seen. I thought it was just a dinner, something small, something simple. I didn't expect streamers. I didn't expect balloons. And I definitely didn't expect a huge sign that read, "Way to go, Jody." It hit me all at once. The laughter, the crowd, the clinking of champagne glasses. This wasn't a dinner, it was a celebration. One I had no idea was happening, one I clearly wasn't supposed to be part of. My eyes scanned the long table. Everyone was already seated, cousins, aunts, even people I hadn't seen in years, and not one empty chair, not even one of those extra fold-up ones. I stood there frozen, holding my breath as Jody looked up and spotted me. She smiled, tight, amused. "Oh," she said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Didn't think you'd show." My mother, seated 2 spots down, turned slightly in her chair. "We thought you might be busy," she offered, voice light, hand fluttering at her collarbone. Franklin, my father, didn't say a word. He avoided my gaze and took a sip of water. It wasn't just that there wasn't a seat. It was that they hadn't expected me to need one. Or worse, they hadn't wanted me to. I didn't speak. I didn't smile. I turned around and walked out. No one followed. No one called. The next morning, they knocked on my door. I had just sat down with a cup of tea, still wrapped in the robe I wore on hard days. The kind of robe you can pull over your heartbreak like armor. Dolores was holding a manila envelope. Franklin stood behind her, hands in his coat pockets. His expression was unreadable, but hers was all performative softness. "We just wanted to talk," she said, her voice pitched like a lullaby. "About last night." I waited. "The dinner ended up costing more than we planned," she added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Franklin handed me the envelope. "We figured you could help cover it." I blinked. "Cover what?" "The bill," Dolores said, as if we were discussing groceries. "It was about $3,200, since you didn't contribute in any other way." I stared at them, first at the envelope, then at their faces. "You're asking me to pay for a celebration I wasn't invited to," I said slowly. Dolores's mouth twitched. "We didn't know if you were coming, but it was still for the family." I laughed, quiet, sharp. "For the family," I repeated. Franklin cleared his throat. "You're doing well. It's not like it's a burden." I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I simply looked at them, and then I closed it, slowly, quietly, letting them stand there in the snow. But that silence wasn't surrender. It was the beginning of something they weren't prepared for. The morning after the dinner, I couldn't bring myself to get dressed. I stayed in my robe, my tea growing cold beside me while the snow dusted the windows outside. I told myself I was fine, that I was used to being an afterthought. But when I opened my email, my stomach turned. There it was, a transaction alert. A pending charge for $3,213.67 from the restaurant. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they had used my phone number for the reservation, maybe it was just a mix-up. But the charge wasn't tied to any card I recognized. I clicked through the details. The last 4 digits didn't belong to me. The account holder? My mother. 2 years ago, she'd handed me a paper at Thanksgiving and asked me to sign it. Something about insurance verification, she said. I had just gotten off a double shift. My hands were still sore from adjusting oxygen tanks. I didn't read it. I signed. Now I knew. It was a credit card application, with me as the secondary. My name, my social security number, her bill. I called the bank. The woman on the line was polite, almost too polite, like she knew I was about to unravel. Yes, the primary account holder is Dolores Harper, she confirmed. My mouth felt dry. And since you're the secondary, ma'am, the responsibility falls on both parties unless one reports fraud. I didn't say anything. I could feel my pulse in my neck. Would you like to open a dispute? I stared at the screen, at the numbers. No, I said, not yet. I ended the call. My fingers trembled. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was something colder. I opened a new tab. Credit report. I needed to know if this was the only skeleton she had tucked under my name. It wasn't. 7 years ago, the same year Jody had gone back to school to finish her degree, a student loan had been opened. Under my name. The balance wasn't large, but the damage was. Late fees, missed payments. A hit to my credit I couldn't explain, until now. I remembered a phone call back then. Mom's voice breezy, casual. You're doing great, Lacey. A little paperwork won't hurt you. It's just easier if it's in your name. I had no idea what she was talking about at the time, but now I did. I pulled up my rejected mortgage application from last spring. The email said my credit score had fallen below the approval threshold. I had blamed it on my credit card balance. The truth was crueler. I'd been shackled to someone else's choices. I sat there a long time, in the quiet hum of my apartment, the weight of it settling in. I had spent years thinking silence was love, that letting things go was maturity. But love doesn't take your name and turn it into collateral. I walked to the fridge, pulled off a sticky note, and wrote the number carefully. $68,421.32. I stuck it to the metal door, centered, and whispered, "That's how much silence has cost me." I wanted to clean. That's what I always did when the weight got too heavy. Scrub, rearrange, alphabetize. So I pulled out the bin of old paperwork I kept under my bed, telling myself I'd finally organized the mess of applications, receipts, and half-filled forms. I didn't expect to find the mortgage pre-approval letter. It was dated last spring, a neat envelope from a local lender, folded once and tucked beneath a file labeled "Someday." I had applied for a small home on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just mine. I remembered the denial, how I'd blamed it on my credit card balances, maybe some missed utility payments. But the rejection letter had said something else. Derogatory mark, defaulted education loan. I didn't have one. My chest tightened as I logged into the credit report site again. The same student loan sat there, bolded in red. Delinquent, 7 years old. And now it had cost me a home, a space of my own, a front porch where I could plant lavender, a kitchen where I wouldn't have to ask permission to use the nice pans. All gone, because of a loan I never took for a degree I never earned. My mouth was dry, my hands were numb. I had paid rent for 15 years, never late. I had done everything right, and still, I couldn't qualify for something Jody would be gifted before she even asked. That evening, I didn't bother cooking. I pulled out a frozen dinner and ate it cold while the microwave blinked behind me, demanding attention I didn't have left to give. The numbness reminded me of something. 2 years ago, on my 35th birthday, I had planned a small dinner, just 5 people, a quiet booth at a local restaurant. My cousin, a childhood friend, maybe even Jody, if she felt like showing up. But the day before, Jody announced her baby shower for the exact same time. Everyone canceled, every single one. Even my best friend said, "I hope you understand, Lacey, it's her first baby." My mother's text was short. "She's pregnant, Lacey. Be understanding." So I went to the store, bought a tiny cake with pink frosting that said, "Happy B-Day," in a child's handwriting. I lit one candle, ate half, then tossed the rest in the trash because I couldn't stand to see it in the fridge the next day. I didn't cry. Not then. But that was the night something inside me cracked. Not shattered. Not loud. Just split. Tonight I walked to my bedroom and opened the top drawer of my nightstand. A stack of birthday cards lay tucked inside. Most were dated years ago. The handwriting faded. Some from co-workers. A few from the center's residents. Not a single one from my family in the last 5 years. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the drawer still open. and whispered, "I've been erased longer than I thought." The message was still there, tucked between emojis and old replies in a group chat I hadn't opened in years. I wasn't looking for it. I was just searching for something to hold on to. I found the date first, February 14th, the same week I turned 35. My birthday dinner had been planned for a Friday. Casual, quiet. I even baked the cake myself. Carrot, because no one ever remembered that I hated chocolate. But no one came. They all said they had other plans, that Jody's baby shower had landed the same weekend, and how could anyone miss it? I remembered sitting at my own kitchen table, staring at the flickering candle, wondering why silence always hurt louder when no one explained it. That morning, as I scrolled the old thread, one message caught my eye, from Dolores. "Wouldn't it be cute to have Jody's shower on Lacey's birthday? 2 girls, 1 weekend." The emoji at the end, a wink, felt like an afterthought. Like my birthday had been penciled in, easy to erase. It hadn't been an accident. It was a decision, a quiet one, casual, but sharp enough to draw blood. I wasn't angry. I was hollow. Like my name had always been something convenient to repurpose. My milestones didn't matter, not if they got in the way of Jody's. My birthdays, my job promotions, even my pain had a short shelf life, repackaged into family moments that made everyone else feel important, but never me. I used to think I was just imagining it, that maybe I was sensitive, that maybe I needed too much. But it wasn't just birthdays. 2 winters ago, our grandmother had been rushed to the hospital. Everyone panicked. Voices bounced across the family thread. Dolores said she was looking into coverage. Jody said she was still recovering from a cold. I didn't say anything. I just drove to the ER, paid the deposit, bought the prescriptions, stayed 3 nights in the chair beside her bed while the monitors beeped through the silence. Later at a family dinner, Dolores stood up and raised a glass. "Thank you all for coming together during that hard time," she said. "Especially Jody for calling the ambulance so quickly." There was applause, smiles, a few pats on Jody's shoulder. I just sat there, chewing too slow, my fork clinking against a plate that somehow always felt borrowed. I never got a thank you. Not then, not ever. I didn't expect one anymore. But this morning, I walked to the filing cabinet where I kept my old tax records and pulled out the hospital receipt. Paid in full, L. Harper. I stared at the line. You know how to write my name when it's convenient. The week after Grandma passed, I found myself avoiding the mirror. Grief clung to my clothes, to the walls of my apartment, to every photo frame I couldn't quite bring myself to dust. I had stayed by her bedside those final nights, counting the seconds between breaths, whispering prayers into silence. At the funeral, I didn't speak. I stood near the back, away from the cluster of family gathered near the altar. Dolores took the front. She wore navy, not black, said it felt less heavy. When she raised her glass at the reception, her voice was steady. "We pulled through this together," she said. "Especially Jody for being so strong." There was applause. I looked down at my shoes, the same shoes I had worn on hospital tiles, standing for hours while nurses gave me updates. The same shoes I had worn to the pharmacy at 3 a.m. to pick up meds Dolores said she'd reimburse. She never did. Later, when I was filing tax papers, I found the final bill, $11,412. I'd paid it all, quietly, without a word. Months after, a letter arrived for Dolores. I only saw the envelope in the stack of her mail. The return address, Guardian Life Insurance, Grandma's policy. She never mentioned it. No check arrived in my name. No message of, "Let me at least cover what you gave." Even grief, I realized, had a hierarchy in this house. I was allowed to carry it, but not to be acknowledged for doing so. It should have hurt more, but I was already too used to absence. A different kind of silence echoed when I touched the plaque on my bookshelf. It was small, unassuming. Just my name engraved under Outstanding Clinical Service Pandemic Response. Last year, my hospital nominated me without telling me. I had cried when they called me on stage, clapped as if the whole world saw. I sent a photo to my parents afterward, half hoping they'd feel what I felt. Franklin responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Dolores never replied. That same night, Jody posted a selfie with a new haircut, the caption, feeling accomplished. I looked back at the plaque, still dusty, still unread by the people I had once begged silently to see me. I didn't want applause anymore. I wanted presence, recognition, something that told me I wasn't just the strong one. They called strong so they didn't have to care. I opened my laptop and drafted an email, not to send, just to name the weight. Things I did that no one saw, things I survived that no one asked about. I wrote line after line, moments they never clapped for, days they never showed up, breakdowns they called mood swings. At the top, I typed what I owed, what I gave, what I should have kept. I saved it in a folder marked "For Me," and I whispered, next time they'll hear me say it out loud. It was a Tuesday morning when I saw the photo. I wasn't looking for it. I was scrolling mindlessly through Dolores's profile, as if punishing myself had become a reflex. The image was familiar, almost warm at first glance, a blurry shot of the awards stage from last year's nursing conference. I recognized the flowers, the podium, even the program booklet peeking from someone's purse in the crowd, but not my face, because it wasn't there. She had cropped it out. The caption read, "So proud of what our family contributes to the community." Family, not daughter, not my name, just family. I blinked, then stared at the photo again. That moment, standing on that stage, clutching a plaque I didn't think I deserved, was the one time I had felt seen. The one time I hadn't had to beg for someone else to applaud, and she cut me out of it. I had sent her the picture myself. I remembered the message, how I added, "Just wanted you to see this," and a smiley face I now hated myself for. She never responded. I had told myself she was busy. Now I knew. She wasn't too busy to post it, just too proud to let me have it. I closed the app. My mouth felt like paper. Later that afternoon, I called Franklin. I didn't want to, but some part of me still thought he might say something different, something true. "Dad," I said, "did you see the post Mom made?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yes." I waited. "She just wanted to share it," he said. "She cropped me out," I replied. Another pause. "You've always been so self-sufficient, Lacey. You don't need things like that. Not like Jody." My stomach flipped. "So because I never needed much, I don't deserve acknowledgement?" "I didn't say that." "You did." He sighed. Not guilty, not hurt, just tired of the topic. "You know Jody's always needed a little more, emotionally." I felt something cold settle in my spine. "That's not love," I said quietly. "That's rationing affection." He didn't respond, and for once I didn't wait. I hung up. That evening I poured a glass of wine and stared at a blank document on my laptop. The blinking cursor reminded me of a heartbeat, nervous and constant. I titled it, "If I Ever Say It to Your Face." Then I wrote one line. "You didn't raise a daughter. You raised a placeholder." And I saved it. The banker didn't mean to say it. I could tell the second the words left her mouth. "Still transferring to your sister's account each month?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" She fumbled with the keyboard. "Oh, I'm sorry. It just shows a recurring transfer from a joint account. I assumed. You assumed I knew." She went pale. I asked for the details. 3 years. $395.20 every month. From Franklin's account to Jody's. Marked as support. The same 3 years I spent skipping vacations, pulling extra shifts, stretching every paycheck to pay off loans I never took. I left the bank with numb hands and a hollow chest. I didn't text. I didn't wait. I called. Franklin answered on the third ring, voice low like he knew. "I just saw it," I said. He didn't pretend, didn't stall. "She's still figuring things out, Lacey. So am I. You've always been the strong one." That's not a compliment. It's not meant to hurt, but it does. I don't know what I expected. Maybe remorse, maybe an apology. What I got was silence, the kind that confirms exactly what you feared. I didn't finish the call. I hung up mid-sentence. For the first time in my life, I didn't wait for him to make it better. The next morning, my phone lit up like a fire. Missed calls, group texts, even an old church friend tagging me in a post I hadn't seen yet. I opened it. Dolores. The photo was an old one, from Jody's graduation. She was front and center, beaming. I was off to the side, mid-blink, almost cropped out. The caption read like a slow, rehearsed eulogy. When your child turns cold, you ask yourself where you went wrong. We raised her with everything we had, but some people choose to walk away. Some choose bitterness over gratitude. We did our best. That's all a parent can do. There were comments. You're such a good mother. She'll come around. I'm praying for your family. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, the picture, the words, the applause she had wanted so badly when I won my award. She gave it to herself, but not for something she earned, for framing herself as the mother of the girl who ruined everything. I read it 3 times. Then I opened a new tab. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I opened a browser window and clicked New Post. The cursor blinked. I typed. Then I backspaced, paused, typed again. Halfway through, my fingers stilled. Not yet. I clicked Save Draft and whispered to the empty room, "You'll hear me, but it'll be on my terms." The notifications woke me before the sun did. One after another, my screen filled with names I hadn't seen in years. Some I barely remembered, others I had tried to forget. My thumb hovered over them, hesitant, before tapping the one at the top. It was a tag. Someone had reshared Dolores's post, the one I hadn't responded to, the one I had saved a draft reply for and then closed. But now it had legs, and those legs had walked straight into places I'd never been invited. A distant cousin I hadn't spoken to since high school commented, "Just like her, always playing the victim." A woman I used to work with added, "Didn't know this was the same Lassie from the clinic." My name had become a punchline in a narrative I never consented to. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a complete rebranding. I closed the app. My hands were steady, but my chest was quiet in that eerie, held breath kind of way, like standing in the hallway after the fire alarm has stopped, but before the all clear has sounded. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Marjorie, one of Dolores's church friends, the kind of woman who once sent holiday cards with Bible verses and homemade bookmarks. It said, "I just wanted to reach out. Your mom told us years ago that you ran away at 19. She said you didn't want anything to do with the family." I stared at the screen for a long time. I read it again, then again. So this was never about a party. It wasn't about a chair, or a cake, or even a name on a bill. This was about the story they'd written without me, about how they made room for themselves by pushing me out, quietly, efficiently, and far earlier than I had ever known. They didn't forget me. They deleted me. Every time they said, "We thought you were busy," it was rehearsed. Every moment they acted surprised I didn't show up. Scripted. I wasn't just absent. I was edited out. There was a strange peace in the realization. Not because it didn't hurt, but because now, finally, I knew where I stood. I opened my laptop. Not to argue, not to fight. I didn't want to win. I just wanted to be heard. I started typing. The title, What They Said, What I Lived. Line by line, I unraveled the quiet. The hospital bills, the cropped photos, the loan in my name, the birthdays I spent alone. It was not a confession. It wasn't even a confrontation. It was an inventory. A truth told softly but firmly. I hit publish and whispered, not to win, just to exist. I didn't write it to prove anything. It was late. The apartment was quiet except for a low jazz track humming from the speaker, filling the space where apologies were supposed to be. I brewed a cup of tea, cinnamon and oat milk, something that tasted like calm. Then I sat at my desk, opened a blank window, and started typing. No names, no theatrics, just truth. I didn't leave. I was pushed away, over years of being erased, silenced, borrowed from, and forgotten. The cursor blinked after that line like it was breathing with me. I let it sit. Then I continued. I wrote about the hospital bill, how I paid it in full without a word, about the student loan I never signed for, the party without a seat, the photo where I didn't exist. I didn't twist the narrative. I didn't sharpen it to wound. I just told it the way it happened. Line by line, I peeled back everything they'd rewritten. At the end, I wrote, I don't need them to admit it. I just need to stop pretending it didn't happen. Then I hit publish. There was no rush of relief, no dramatic music cue, just the kind of quiet that comes when you finally say something that's been inside you for too long. A few former coworkers commented things like, "This explains a lot," or "proud of you." One message came from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. It just said, "You didn't deserve that." And that was enough. Dolores didn't call, Jody didn't text, Franklin didn't email, and somehow that silence was easier than the years I spent begging for noise. That weekend, I volunteered to work the Christmas Eve night shift. The center was still, soft lights twinkling over the lobby fireplace. Clara sat next to me at the nurse's desk, holding a mug of cocoa with both hands. "Did your family ever call?" she asked, eyes kind but tired. I smiled. "No, and I'm okay with that." She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. When my rounds were done, I poured myself a second cup of tea, walked over to the common room, and sat by the window. The snow fell soft and steady outside. It didn't ask anything of me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting, not for an explanation, not for recognition, not for a seat at a table I was never meant to sit at. I was just breathing. Sometimes you don't get closure. You create it. There won't always be apologies. There won't always be a seat saved for you. And sometimes the people who were supposed to protect you are the same ones who taught you how to disappear. But here's what I've learned. Being forgotten doesn't make you forgettable. Being erased doesn't mean you don't exist. You are not selfish for choosing peace over performance. You are not wrong for walking away when staying only meant bleeding quietly. If you've ever been the one who gave more than they got, this story is yours too. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose yourself over your family? Have you ever told your story not to be heard, but to heal? If this video touched your heart, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't speak to you, let me know why. Your voice matters too. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a story that just might feel like your own. We heal better when we don't do it alone.